Welcome to another episode of Purchase to Profits. I'm Seth Ferguson. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our daily interviews with successful real estate investors. Our guest today bought his first house in 2002 in Red Deer, Alberta. He's an investor, speaker, trainer, and general contractor who's appeared on HGTV, CBC, and the W Network. Darren Voros joins us today. Darren, welcome to Purchase to Profits. It's great to have you on the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really looking forward to this. So let's jump right into things and talk about your real estate goals right now.
I think my goals have shifted a little bit over the last little while. I've really sort of been looking at how to scale my business as of late, and so I'm actually really my goals. 2019, my personal goals were to have better work-life balance. That was one of my personal goals. And my real estate goals, that means I need to step back a little bit. And I need to be, one of my best friends, is a great small business owner. And he says, you got to work on your business and not in it. And so my real estate goals for this year and more recently right away are to be able to step back to my business and look at things from a holistic perspective so that I can figure out how to scale my business and how I can do that instead of actually being involved in the day-to-day of my operations.
Yeah, it goes right to the E-Myth book by Michael Gerber.
Absolutely, for sure. Yeah.
So then have you been, it's always tough when you're an entrepreneur, especially a real estate investor, because you always want to be the guy hands-on and everything. How have you changed so far this year to start working towards that goal? Have you brought on other people?
Yeah, I think for me, especially as a contractor, and I've picked up skills over the years. I mean, I just finished building a triplex from the ground up, first one I ever did. It was such a cool experience. I really wanted to do it. But, having that experience, and then we're doing another project right now, I wanted to be able to have like a little bit more time for myself. And so that just means I need to hire people. I need to, let people do what they do best. Of course, that costs me more money. But, then you have to look at it. What's your time worth? What could you be doing with that time instead of saving yourself, let's say, $5,000 on doing your own wiring? It's like you hire an electrician to do that. And then what does that allow you for time? And that's been my biggest sort of takeaway from this recent experience is, I need time to be able to do all the things that I want to be able to do. And I can't do that, if I'm doing other things. And, if I could go out and find one business partner on a JV transaction, something like that, I'll far exceed what I would pay somebody else, even a highly skilled person like an electrician, to come in and do the jobs that they're going to do. So I think that's been a big learning for me as of recently.
Yeah. And with all the free time you'll get once you've put all the systems in place, are you looking at massively scaling your business, but still running it as kind of the captain, or are you looking to take it in a different direction?
I'm looking to take things in a slightly different direction. I want to look at expanding into some larger buildings. I have a lot of duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, that kind of thing. I really want to get into multi-unit, but I also, that's something that I'm a little struggling with a little bit as of late, is because I'm not great with going out and asking people to invest with me. It's not one of my great skill sets. I know that about myself. I just have a hard time asking people, although I have a great track record and I feel like my business is very solid. It's not something that I feel super comfortable with. So that's one thing that I either have to, look at hiring somebody to be able to do that, or I have to figure out a way that with my combined equity and assets that I can go out and do this with my own capital for a little while until I feel real comfortable going out there and marketing to the outside world.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head, because especially when you're raising capital, you have the operator side and then you have the capital raising side. And usually the one person can't do both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
And that's something that I'm fine to, to relinquish control of, is that I know lots of great people that I've worked with over the years that would be great at going out and fundraising capital. And I'm more on my operational side. That's what I enjoy, So looking at the numbers and looking at all the analytics is something that I really look forward to, as opposed to going out and having conversations with people and asking them to invest in my projects.
Yeah. Do you think you'd do some multifamily in Ontario or go outside?
I think Ontario is not a market that I would really focus on. I think for multifamily, honestly, I'm looking at the US predominantly, and I'm looking back at Alberta because, I mean, as you know, as an investor, the market is down there a little bit. Cost per door is a lot less. I think that when the markets are down in certain areas, you want to look at, picking up property. And I think Ontario right now, there's a huge influx of investors coming here. Especially in the GTA, that the cost, is just astronomical to get into multi-unit. And not that I wouldn't be able to do that, I think, on a smaller scale, but I'd really like to acquire, 30, 40 doors in one transaction. And I don't know if I can look at doing that here in Ontario.
Yeah. And then not to mention and not to mention the landlord tenant laws. Not
super favorable here in Ontario. In Alberta, very different. In some states in the US, obviously very different. So those are all, absolutely things that you factor in when you're looking at where you want to invest, for sure.
Yeah, no, good stuff. We'll have to have you back on in a year, and then we'll talk about how things are going.
Absolutely.
So what would you say, because I know you want to scale your business, put some people in place. What is the number one challenge that you have right now with your real estate business?
I think it's time, honestly. And I think that's going to be coming to an end very soon. I'm finishing up this project. It's actually a unit that I'm moving into myself. And so I'm very hands-on with that. I want to make sure that everything is done properly. That's going to come to a close around the 1st of September. And so right now, the biggest thing for me is time. I just don't have a lot of it right now to be able to focus on my business. I think beyond that, I think it's really just a matter of relationship building and networking. Those are obviously my biggest challenges when it comes to being able to do what I want to be able to do. I feel comfortable talking with people. Obviously, I'm on television. I do all that kind of stuff. But like I say, it's always been a bit of a crutch for me in terms of why do I feel this barrier? Like I said to you earlier, when I have this very successful business and people look at that and they, they want to be a part of it, but it's a difficult transition for me. But I'm looking forward to getting over that hurdle and being able to rise up to the challenge of stepping out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, for sure. Well, speaking of comfort zones and all that stuff, have you developed any routines or rituals that have helped make you successful thus far?
I think, due diligence is a big one. I think I didn't do that in the beginning. I just got into real estate investing. I just purchased a property. And to be honest, I got lucky that the market went up the way that it did. I could have just as easily gone down. I could have lost my money. I would not want to have been a real estate investor if that was the case. So, once I figured out some system, that was really my biggest, aha moment, if you will, where I thought, this is something that I have to rely on over and over again. The numbers have to make sense. And if they don't, you have to be willing to walk away. And so many people get emotionally involved in what they're doing. And as an investor, it's just something you can't succumb to. You have to really just focus on, what your numbers say. And if they're good, then go with it. And if they're not, just walk away and go on to the next. There's always another deal coming along.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And how do you manage, because you've got your speaking, you're on TV, you've got your real business. How do you manage to make that all, fit together in your schedule?
I think it's something that, is very categorically sort of separate for me. And, the speaking stuff is more of a weekend thing where I go out, I travel all across North America. I speak to real estate investors. I teach real estate investors how to get involved with real estate. So that's sort of my weekend project. It's probably every, couple weekends a month is maximum what I do. The TV stuff is, once a month, maybe twice a month. I'm appearing for a morning or two. That's about it. And then basically the rest of my time is dedicated to my real estate business. So I feel like it's a really nice balance. I don't feel like I'm overworked or I don't feel like I have too much downtime, because I get a little antsy when I have too much downtime. But and if I work on a weekend, I have the flexibility in my schedule to take a couple days during the week and just relax. So I really enjoy being a full-time real estate investor and the flexibility that it allows me to do with all of my things that I want to do in life, for sure.
Yeah. So let's jump over to a keystone deal. So a deal that made a big impact to you and your business. Is there one that comes to mind?
Well, I'll talk about the one that's most recent, and that's this property that I'm sitting in right now. We bought it 3 years ago with two partners and myself. They were looking at getting involved in real estate investing. One of them used to be my tenant on a building across the street that I own. And he said, I've got a friend, he's got some capital, and I think I've got a little bit of capital, but basically what we would bring to the table is we could qualify for financing and bring the down payment. And so we worked out a deal where we bought the property literally across the street from the one that I already owned that he used to be a tenant in. With the idea of renovating it. Actually, we didn't plan on tearing it down, but then once I got involved in the process, I realized the foundation wasn't great. There was going to be so many things that we needed to do. And I said, let's just take this building down and rebuild a brand new triplex. And so, do you want to talk numbers specifically?
Yeah, let's go for it.
So, we bought it for $870, which is kind of funny, like buying $1 million teardown, I call it. And then, we spent about $800,000 on the renovation. Most of that, like a third of that, was city fees, like development costs and, all of these kind of crazy things that, the city has to come up with. And the building itself cost about $500,000 to build. And that was me doing a lot of the labor too. So the cost of hiring someone else would have been significantly different. But in the end, we were in for about 1.6, something like that, in that range. And it appraised, when we got it refinanced, it appraised at 2.3.
Oh, nice.
So we were really happy with that. So essentially we were able to create about $600,000 in equity. And that was a sort of a huge win for us. We were able to refinance it. We were able to pull out all of our capital that we had into the renovation. So really all we've got into this, essentially $2.3 million property is our initial down payment and closing costs, which is about $150,000. And the revenue the building brings in about $12,000 a month in revenue. And it's got great tenants. It's obviously a brand new building that we won't have to worry about for many, many years. And my partners are just over the moon happy with everything that we've done here and looking to sort of recreate this model that we've done here in future transactions.
Yeah, I think that's a great example, especially being in Toronto. Lots of other investors, when I talk to them and I mention, the average house price in Toronto, they're like, what? That's crazy. Doing a burst strategy is so tough in a market like that, because the margins are so thin. So how do you approach these projects to be able to pull out all your money when most people can't make that happen?
I think it's really around, you have to know your renovation costs, and you've got to know, that they're not going to balloon beyond, your expectations. And because I have a construction background, because I know when I can look at a building and say, okay, that's going to cost me X amount of dollars. And then of course you got to buy it right. I know a lot of people in Toronto are just overpaying because they want to get into the market. And, there's a hype around this market. There's bidding wars. There's all these types of things. And so we actually found this property. I knew that it was on the market the year before and it went off the market. And so we actually approached the sellers privately. And I think, we ended up paying more for it the following year than what they had it on the market for the year before. But that's just what the market had done in that year. It had gone up by about 15%. And so I think we ended up paying about 12% more than it was listed for the year before, but we didn't have to compete with anybody else. We got, on our own terms, we got to do a home inspection. We got to have financing conditions. We got to do all those types of things. So, that's something that I try to teach people is I'm like, even in these markets, you have to figure out a way to be different than everybody else. Because if you're just going on MLS with your realtor, you're going to overpay for a property. And as we make our money on the buy, where we have to be able to scoop properties at a significant discount in order to be able to make a profit on it.
Yeah, and you made a great point in getting your terms as well. And sometimes terms are even more important than the price necessarily.
Absolutely. It was really important that we were able to walk through with my architect and say, what can we do on this building? And we were able to do that during our conditional period. We knew we were going to get financing on the property. There was all these types of things. So that was a nice, and we didn't have a ton of time. We probably had 10 business days, but still that's a lot of time in Toronto, and a lot of things that a lot of time people don't have that in their offers when they're dealing with, these hot properties in these hot neighborhoods.
Yeah. I'm really glad you brought up that story. I think that's a really good example, especially in a crazy market like Toronto.
it's nuts here. It's hard to believe. I mean, I'm really happy that I have multiple properties here, and you know, the equity that I've been able to create over the last couple of years is quite astonishing. But at the same time, you got to look at how do you keep moving along in that market, because you don't want to stall. But you have to do it very strategically, or you can be getting in over your head very, very quickly.
Yeah, 100%. So how has getting, you know, you bought your first place in Red Deer back in the day. How has getting into real estate changed your life so far?
It's been kind of crazy. It's been a bit of a trickle effect. I'm not gonna lie that it's not been a huge windfall. You know, I always tell people, I'm like, real estate's a long-term game. If you're expecting to make $1 million overnight, it doesn't really happen that way. But if you're in it to create long-term wealth, I think it can be a phenomenal thing for people who want to be involved in real estate. And that's really what it's done for me. It's been gradual. I've had jobs in the past. I used to work, you know, I was a professional actor for 15 years, and I would go to the theater and work every night, and then get up in the day, and I'd go and work on my properties. And I started to add to my portfolio. And then there became a point where I thought, you know what, I don't need to do this anymore. I don't need to work. My cash flow from my properties and my equity that I've created. And that was really where, you know, I was so grateful that I did what I did when I did it, because I did a year in Japan over at Universal Studios. I came back with a significant amount of money at that time in my pocket. And I owned a lot of people that I worked with. They bought, you know, silly things, really, you know, cars and whatever else, or blew it on things that they couldn't really show anything for it. And for me, I was like, I want to invest this money, and I want to invest in real estate. And that single year that I worked in Japan, and that first house that I bought, has really set me up for the rest of my life. And I made some good decisions along the way, absolutely, for sure. I've made mistakes, no question about it. But I think I'm completely content with the life that I've been able to create, and looking forward to what I can do from this moment on with the knowledge that I have.
Yeah. And looking ahead, let's say 10 years from now, where do you see yourself going with real estate?
I see myself basically, you know, I think I will never be satisfied with what I have. I'll always want to be continuing to grow. I think that, you know, I'm in my 40s. And so I think I'll be still working away. It's something that I love to do. And that's why I love real estate. I don't ever really feel like it's a job. It's something that I find I'm excited about every morning when I wake up. So I see myself just trying to build my portfolio, build my wealth, being able to give back, you know, at some point. We always talk about legacy wealth, being able to provide for other people, whether that's my family or my friends or charities or things that I like. And I hope that I'm in a position to do that in about 10 years.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we'll bring it back next year, and we'll do an update. That would be great.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well, Darren, just want to say thanks so much for taking the time today and sharing those stories with us. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. So.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. And to you, our guests and viewers, our viewers, you are the guest. I wish you well on your journey from purchase to profits. See you next time.